What do you hope that the audience will take away from your story?
Well, I hope they want to read more of it immediately. I hope when they finish, you're like, oh man, I wish there was more of that. Um, After that, I hope that they are entertained by it. Um, a lot of comic reading is, escapist fun. And one of the cool things we can do as writers is explore all the really deep and meaningful and people parts, the human things that we feel and we go through and we experience, and we can pour all that into our work. But at the end of the day, we just want somebody to read it and be like, man, that was good. That was good.
Okay.
I want to read another one. I want to finish the story. Like, I want to find out what happens to these people.
Yeah.
And go on a journey with them.
Before we move on, this video is brought to you by Purgatory Academy, a drama series about heaven, hell, and having 4 years to decide. Chimera Island, a slice of life series about a hidden island striving to find balance. Let's Go Metal Hero, a superhero series about two siblings who want to turn a robot into a, well, superhero. And Just a Reaper, an action comedy series about a young Grim Reaper trying to keep hell off Earth. Read these series for free with the pinned comment below and sign up to the newsletter to never miss an update. Back to the video. You said comics or like entertainment is escape is fun. What do you see in the value of escapism?
So that is a double-edged sword, because there is an escapist element of it, but the flip side of that is also is I actually fully, truly, and wholly, and always have, before I was even really hip to what literature was, thought comics were literature. Because it was, my parents were educators, so I was reading my ass off as a child, and it was the coolest thing because there's just words and words and words and concepts and words. So there's this educational part of it, but then taking that one step farther as an art form, being a legitimate piece of literature. I also believe that that's possible. Now, the value of escapism is, that's why we like popcorn, that's why we love Michael Bay, or we used to, popcorn movies.
Yeah,
or other, like, the world is a mad place. And sometimes it's cool to just watch cars change into robots and people fly around with, red flags tied around their neck and do neat stuff and step away from all that for a few minutes and see people fly around and save the day and see doctors cure cancer and people pull people out of wreckages and save them instead of all the real life stuff that we have to look at sometimes.
I feel like it's really interesting how a lot of media is meant to be escapism, but you see a lot of people gravitate to stories that has a lot of real world ills and injustices. But I guess when to answer that weird thing that I notice, despite a lot of our entertainment talks about the things that we get away with, why do you think people still gravitate to such stories if escapism is about getting away from certain world illnesses?
That's a great question. I wonder about that a lot in writer circles, in creative circles. We talk about things being grounded a lot. Like, the story's really grounded in reality, and I always question that. Like, yeah, that's neat. Conceptually, I get why that's important as a storyteller. But, like, why we need that? We live in reality. We're standing in it. We're covered in it. We're breathing it in right this second. How about we just not for a minute? So I'm not sure both of those things exist a lot. Like, I love those grounded, gritty, in-your-face reality type stories with fantastical elements. I love that stuff. But I also love, like, just show me a heist. Like, go steal that jewel, or go and grab those cars, or whatever. I love
Yeah.
watching, or reading, or just seeing stuff that we see all the time in the real world. Why are we going to? I don't know. I'm not sure. I think it's the stylized. Recently, my wife asked me. We were watching one of the John Wick movies,
Hmm.
3, and she was like, "This is just so violent. Why are you entertained by this?" And I was like, "Well, damn. Like you thought this was cool 10 minutes ago. Like you just didn't like that movie you did with the book. You know, like the sound it made." But that's an interesting question because yeah, it's hyper super violent, and we're like, "Yay, it's great." But when I thought about it, I was like, "No, it's not violence. It's just movement." Well,
Hmm.
it's a movie.
I have
He
a
didn't just beat the crap out of 57 guys.
for no reason.
He just no, he just
Yeah.
did some cool fight choreography and moved his body in ways that I find aesthetically pleasing.
Hmm.
It's just a dance, like it's the dance. It's not like we're sitting back watching old archival footage of CNN.
Right.
So there's an element of I am watching a stylized version of a bank heist and nobody's getting hurt, and it's just like I can appreciate the aesthetics and the planning because I'm writing a heist story, so I got to actually be able to plan this robbery. So I've been watching a lot of crime stuff, reading a lot of crime stuff,
Hmm.
and the realism. It's like I don't know. That's a good question. Like, why do we need that? Why do we need that?
I have a quote that I always think about when I write my own stories, and I believe it was from a philosopher. I can't remember. I always quote him all the time, but I don't remember his name. Sometimes I don't know. That sounds disrespectful. I need to get on that.
Got to figure out that name.
I gotta figure out
Yeah.
that name, but but his quote goes something along the lines of every story is an argument.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to an extension of that, every character is a different perspective of that argument, or the purpose of every character has like their own idea of what the main theme of the story is about. And I think at a subconscious level, we perceive all these. We perceive like the problem is the world's ills. With all these grounded stories, we have a set problem, and all these different characters, mostly flawed characters, to relate to that we can relate to, have their own perspectives of how to tackle this issue.
Right.
And I think it's because of those differing perspectives is where we find conflict. A lot of wars, fighting, like yelling at each other, and that's gripping to us because most likely we either side with the protagonist or the
Mm-hmm.
antagonist. Just like with with the Black Panther movies several years back, like we can both understand where the both sides of the story of being isolationist and keeping all the wealth of your own people to yourself, or distributing that wealth to other people in need. Like there's
Yeah.
a and I think people don't really need to think about it to understand that these are topics that everybody can have a conversation about. And after watching the movie or a comic, we all end up having philosophical conversations of, you know what, I think this character was right, or even though this character was wrong, I can see why took the steps that he had to take to protect his family or protect his friends, his loved ones, or his
Right.
country. And I
Right.
think I think when things get gritty, that's when people sit down and they can understand why we do things. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah. Creating that understanding is crucial when you're making characters. When you're making these words on a page, on letters on a screen, when you're making them into characters, that
Hmm.
100% counts. And one thing that I thought was super cool. I just want to tell you real quick, as you made me think of it. In your purgatory story, like you offered an alternate perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a third character that's like, yeah, I don't really believe our choices matter, but I'll play. I'll
Yeah.
play. Like I'm not. I don't really think this will do anything at all, but I'll play along just because I'm cool that, or like you guys are my friends, or like I thought that was neat.
Yeah.
And
I
there's
appreciate it.
there's always that because it's kind of a the one is like I'm not into this binary thing, like I'm not into the black and white,
Mm-hmm.
and the one's super. The other guy's like he wants to. He's a is he. I wasn't super clear on the belief part, but anyway, I thought that was super cool.
Yeah, there's
and
yeah.
and it created that understanding, like being able to. You don't have to agree with a character, with their actions, with their monologues, with whatever. But it is 100% crucial that you understand, or you at least are able to like chart the path to where the logic for that character is sound.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I get why. I get it. I'm not saying it's right, but
Yeah.
I get why you went in there with, pockets full of grenades and did what you did.
I guess Breaking Bad would be like the probably the most the most extreme of it there, where like no one can agree with what the protagonist Walter White has done, but within the circumstances we understand. And on the other end of the spectrum, I guess you would have John Wick, where doesn't he go through a whole entire killing spree off of somebody killing his dog or kidnapping his dog?
No, they actually killed the dog,
Okay, I have not
which is
seen it.
horrible.
I only
And
know
yeah,
John Wick through like cultural osmosis. I know they're great movies. I just haven't taken the time.
I'll tell you the thing about the Wick phenomenon, at least that made it work for me, particularly in the first one. Not so much in the subsequent, not as much in the subsequent ones, although it's still there. Is it all comes from like it's very deep, deep heart. Like it's got heart. Because yeah, he goes on a mad killing spree. Because yeah, they killed his dog, which sucks. Like there's no reason for you to stomp that puppy, dude. There's no reason. But then there's another layer of like, where'd this puppy come from? It just shows up on his doorstep after he goes to this funeral. Well, it's from his wife, who is literally, you've just gone with him to her funeral. And the dog shows up day of, so he doesn't have to be alone. It's a gift from his dead wife. And these punks break into his house, kill his dog, steal his car. So yeah, he goes ham. But every single round that he fires, every single throat that he chops, you're like, yeah, you guys took more than the puppy,
Yeah, that I guess that's also another thing that's very subconscious. It's just of clearly a power fantasy of like taking. Well, you don't take back from taking lives from a bunch of people who were just paid to do so. You know,
Yeah.
But at the same time, like we all had that feeling of if we had that power to try to right some wrongs, even though what we think is right is just adding more wrongs, and nobody gets anything, and nobody wins outside of the satisfaction of proving that you could do something. I feel like that's like there's something about like the base urges of humanity that humanity that we can at least connect to, or we can at least see why he did what he did, and we root for him with whatever endeavors that he's trying to achieve.
Yeah, most definitely. Like in our lizard brain or whatever. Yeah, we're still wired with that. Hit him with a stick, hit him with a rock. Yeah, for sure.